Good almost afternoon, everybody. It is July 8th, 2018, Sunday, 11:16 a.m. All right, we have a lot to talk about today. I'm going to have a few videos up today because I don't want to lose focus here. I want to focus individual videos on specific things here. So we are following two active tropical storms right now. Beryl has become downgraded to a tropical storm, as I'm sure a lot of you know. 45-mile-per-hour sustained winds heading towards the Leeward Islands. Now, there are tropical storm warning hurricane watches for the islands like Guadalupe, Dominica, St. Lucia, and all these islands basically, and it looks like it's going to go underneath Puerto Rico and possibly come up through the Dominican Republic, possibly right underneath, like through Santo Domingo. We talked a lot about Santo Domingo last year. There's something interesting with Beryl, though. A lot of these models are tracking Beryl with the possibility of it going through and then surviving and then reforming basically right next to the Bahamas. So we're going to take a look at that. I'm going to have a separate video on that as well. As you can see here right now, we do have tropical storm warnings right off the coasts, basically of South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, which will probably start moving up the East Coast. Now, this thing is not expected to hook into land. It's actually expected to move out, as you can see here with our cone of uncertainty. But look at the H there, guys. This thing's expected to actually be upgraded to a hurricane, Category 1. I don't believe it'll get any stronger than that, but we got to deal with our friends in Nova Scotia. Now, that is going to be an issue for that area because it looks like it wants to go in that direction as a direct hit. There are models that track it coming a little bit closer into Massachusetts even. Very interesting there. We need to really keep an eye on Chris here, especially if it becomes a hurricane. If this thing becomes a hurricane and we get a change in pressures, now we got to remember, guys, we have, let's see if I can explain this a little better on Tropical Tidbits. I need to show you a few things because we have Beryl and Chris with some of these models showing both at the same time. You can see right here, this would be Hurricane Chris if it forms, and this is Hurricane Beryl that has been downgraded to a tropical storm, making its way through the Leeward Islands and then probably underneath Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is not out of the loop for this in any way, shape, or form. I will keep you updated on that as well. Santo Domingo and then going up through the rest of the Dominican Republic near the Bahamas, you could see it begin to reform according to the Canadian model. Actually, Europeans actually have this too, believe it or not, and I'll show you. It has the storm surviving and then reforming into a hurricane again and possibly riding up the East Coast. Now, this is backed up by a few things. You could see here in the spaghetti plots for Beryl that it wants to go through the Leeward Islands just underneath Puerto Rico for the most part. We need to make sure we understand that this is not set in stone. These things change every couple hours, these spaghetti plots. This big, long one you see here with the triangles on it, that is the current direction. Whenever you see this black line with the black triangles, that is where it is currently moving. And then these models you can match up here with where it is expected to go. But we all know we cannot rely on these 100%. These are guidelines based on different atmospheric conditions going on all over the planet. In our case, it's the Atlantic Ocean pressure and then highs and lows that move across the U.S. Now, we do have a high pressure. I don't have an actual animated chart of this for you. We have a high pressure that's going to be pushing down from Canada, and that is the reason why Chris here with this cone of uncertainty is expected to get pushed out into the Atlantic Ocean. Now, let's hope that happens, but again, some of these plots still have this thing even clipping land in Massachusetts, like areas near Nantucket. This would clearly affect the coastline all the way, like I said, from South Carolina, all of Chesapeake Bay, Delaware, New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, you name it, Maine, all of these states here. And then if it doesn't hit any of these places, we have to worry about our friends in Nova Scotia. So one way or another, Chris is going to cause some havoc. I'm sorry I keep bouncing around between Beryl and Chris, but we have two storms going on at the same time. Beryl already having been a hurricane, Category 1 storm, downgraded to a tropical storm, may be downgraded to a tropical depression, but it's hard to say now because a lot of these plots, like I said, are taking this thing right through almost Santo Domingo. It looks like it wants to go right through the heart of the city and then through the rest of the Dominican Republic, and then, like I said, to the Bahamas, where it may reform into a hurricane. Now, it says it could drop down to a depression right before it gets to Dominican Republic. If it's going to hit land, let's hope that happens. But first, we need to worry about the Leeward Islands. And like I said here, these are the islands there that are under very heavy watches right now, because the storm, regardless of its strength right now or what it's going to be, it will be passing right through this area, the Dominica area specifically. We can remember a lot of these islands were just totally decimated last year during the hurricane season, so you can only assume that there's still cleanup processes even going on in some of these places. So like I said, guys, we have a lot to talk about today. Sorry if I'm all over the place. A lot going on. But we're going to start with the U.S., so my next video will be about these two storms possibly being around at the same exact time. And you can look at Ventusca here. This is the GEM model, so check this out. We have Chris here, and then we have Beryl, which actually is shown as reforming. I'll go back to the 8th, and I'll run this back for you guys. Here's Beryl here, about to make it to the Leeward Islands in about 12 hours, so that's about the warning we have right now. By Monday, 8 a.m., the storm should be right about here. And then it looks like it wants to go under Puerto Rico and then right up through Santo Domingo, like I said, in the Dominican Republic. So, and then we have Chris right here, which is starting to give its spin. I can bring you to a site that'll show. There we go. I do have it. All right. So if I back up here, we could see Chris kind of huffing and puffing. First, a couple hours ago, it was a big system like this. It was one explosion like that, big moisture bubble, and then it started forming and then became Tropical Storm Chris right there, you can see. And that is why now they are saying this thing may become a hurricane. Now, again, that high pressure, we have a high dip coming down that's going to make its way this way, and that should keep it off the East Coast. Now, that is not guaranteed. That's why we have to keep an eye on this every couple hours, and that's why I'm going to be doing multiple videos today. But as far as the Weather Channel goes, Chris will meander off into the Carolina coastline early this week. The system may become a hurricane by midweek as it heads farther out to sea. But again, we saw some of those models that show it possibly clipping areas in Massachusetts. So a lot of different things going on at once here. Tropical Storm Chris will continue to generate high surf and dangerous rip currents along parts of the East Coast as it loiters off the Carolina coast for the next few days. And also, a man has drowned from these rip currents, which are very dangerous, especially when it comes to hurricanes and tropical storms. But there you have it, guys. Right now, is north of Charleston, underneath Morehead City in North Carolina, and then Virginia. You can see right here. So these areas with the surf is going to be one interesting situation that we just need to keep an eye on. So let's run through these days. Here's the 8th. Here's the 9th. By the 9th, this thing's just under or could be over Puerto Rico. That's why you got that uncertainty there. Almost looks like 3 separate systems right now, 3 different low pressure systems by tomorrow, which would be Monday. Here is the 10th. You can see that Beryl has passed through Puerto Rico, and then also through Dominican Republic, and now it's moving up towards the Bahamas as Chris is beginning to pick up speed. And then as we move into Wednesday the 11th, guys, look at this. Both of these storms look to form, and it looks like Beryl wants to reform right next to the Bahamas to the east of Florida. Well off the coast of Florida, but once we get to this 4 and 5 day out area, the uncertainty goes down to almost zero. You just don't know where these storms are going to go. You can get an educated guess based on the atmospheric conditions like we talk about, like I try to teach you guys and help understand. It took me a long time to really understand how these trade winds work, the different types of shear winds we have, dry, moist winds. It all plays a factor into where these storms go. So those of us on the East Coast, I'm here in southeast Pennsylvania now. I'm in either northeast or southeast, depending on what time of the month it is. But we have 2 very significant systems, and we have our buddies down in the Leeward Islands to worry about. They're going to get hit with this thing within the next 12 hours, and then we need to worry about Puerto Rico, Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. Then we got to worry about the Bahamas, and then the possibility of both of these storms being off the East Coast at the same time. So a lot to talk about today. This is currently Beryl. You can see here that's 40 knots. I would say that's about, what is it, 1.5 miles per hour per knot, give or take. So probably like 55 mile per hour winds. We're still in tropical storm territory, so this thing is no joke, but the plots are what I want you guys to notice here. They have this thing coming all the way up to the East Coast, and some even having it going inland by the Carolinas, some of it coming into Chesapeake Bay. But nonetheless, a lot of these models have this storm surviving, excuse me, and the pressure staying fairly low too. So again, even though it may not be a hurricane, the amount of moisture it brings and the surf damage we saw what happened in Texas with that tropical wave alone. It wasn't even tropical depression. What it did, dropping 2 feet of water. So, all right, guys, let me get some more information together for you. We will have an update on it. Guess this one here says sustained winds of 40 miles per hour, but there's been an update. It is faster now. It is a tropical storm, obviously. So we have Chris, we have Beryl, and a lot more to talk about. So we'll go over these timelines, and we'll meet back here in a little while, guys. Hope you're having a great weekend. Congratulations, Daniel Cormier. He is the new UFC heavyweight champion. Take care, guys. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.